Angela was born in the forest right in a clearing. Her mother had gone out to pick the elecampane and had no other choice. Angela's mother was an herbalist and lived as a hermit in the forest, so even when she was pregnant, she would go out on her own to collect various herbs. Who Angela's father was remained a mystery. The girl's mother was the subject of much gossip and wasn't well liked in the village. However, her services were used quite often, and it must be said that not only women and girls, but men as well used her services. The healer didn't take money for it, but received some kind of pension from the post office, for which she came once or twice a month. The money was enough for her. She enjoyed the bounty of nature. For her services as a healer, the woman would only take food or clothes. She asked men to fetch water, chop wood, repair the house and furniture, and clean the chimney. But since she was disliked for some unknown reason, ill-wishers began to spread bad gossip about Angela's mother, and jealous women accused her of debauchery. Rumors began to circulate about how the woman had become pregnant. They said that she was the former mistress of the local priest and that his wife had left him because of her. Anyway, the herbalist continued to live alone in the forest and had little contact with the villagers. As befits a daughter of a healer, Angela, too, grew up with little interaction with the villagers. Her mother didn't protect her daughter from a life in the woods, but warned her against strangers and a visit to the village. As time went on, Angela grew up. The trees in the forest, the stream with the icy water, and the birds and animals that she would help if they got into trouble became her friends. The only thing she didn't want to do was learn her mother's skills. She wasn't interested in it at all. She didn't like people and didn't want to help them. Only then did the healer realize that she had made a big mistake. Wishing to keep her daughter out of trouble, she shielded her from people. But it was too late. There was nothing to be done. The healer died of pneumonia after a cold. Angela lived as best and as well as she could. In general, having grown accustomed to a poor diet with her mother, she was able to feed herself. One day she met her first love by the stream. At that time she was already 18. As she filled the jug with spring water, she noticed the reflection of a young man in the water. Angela looked up and met the handsome young man. He wasn't a villager. This could be seen in his clothes, his trim figure, and well-groomed appearance, and in fact, Angela knew all the villagers. He was handsome, and the girl liked him well, so they struck up a conversation. Angela grew up in the forest, but that doesn't mean she was stupid or uneducated. Angela had read books, watched television, and her mother had told her things. So Angela was well aware of what first love was, what could happen between a boy and a girl, and what the consequences were. The guy's name was Andrew. It was clear that he liked Angela too. However, Andrew turned out to be a real scoundrel. Being a rich city kid, Andrew was used to taking everything from life and achieving everything, and when he got a coveted toy, he gave it up. If a new girl appeared in Andrew's company, she was bound to become his one-night stand, and then he didn't care about them anymore. In the village, he was visiting someone. He was bored and went for a walk in the woods, and there an evil fate brought together an innocent creature with a devilish brat. Angela invited Andrew to her place and showed him how to get to her house, which she loved so much, where she had lived all her life. Andrew was surprised at the strange ambiance of the house, the patchwork quilt, the baskets on the shelves, and the bundles of some herbs hanging from the ceiling. Everything was so clean, fresh, natural, and untouched, like an innocent girl. The scoundrel wanted to put his hand on everything, to desecrate the place, to leave his indelible mark here, just as he had left his marks in the hearts of other innocent girls. He promised to return. Angela smiled and walked him to the doorstep. She felt dizzy and faint with happiness. Angela had her first love. She couldn't fall asleep with joy and elation until almost morning. It was only at dawn that Angela managed to fall asleep and slept until dinner, something that had never happened to her before. Angela spent the rest of the day cleaning the house. She picked out her outfit, laid a clean white tablecloth on the table, which her mother had embroidered, put candles everywhere, and waited impatiently for him, mistaking the anxious foreboding for excited anticipation. When would he return? And if he would return? "What's going on? Who are you?" Angela frightenedly looked around. Some guys came into the house. She had been waiting for Andrew, and she had never seen these men before. "Well, where is our beautiful little dove? Oh, Andrew, you didn't lie. She's really pretty," were comments she heard from all over the place. "You've really been waiting for me," Angela heard Andrew's voice. Why did he bring them here? Probably he decided to introduce his friends, but she waited for him to come alone. "Were you waiting for me, sweetie?" Andrew asked and ran his finger along Angela's cheek. Such velvety cheeks. "Andrew, does she really live here alone?" someone asked fearfully. "Completely alone, just like her mother used to live here. You're as much of a man-lover as she is, aren't you?" Andrew said, leaning down in front of Angela's very frightened face. She could feel his nasty, smelly breath. He was clearly not sober. "Won't the mother turn up?" asked the same fearful voice of one of the boys. "Not unless it's from beyond the grave. She's dead, you see," Andrew said in a sarcastic tone, and put out the candle. "To hell with it," someone shouted. "Let's have some fun, guys." And the others blew out the candles all at once. Darkness fell. She didn't shout. She knew it was of no use. No one would hear her, and no one would come to her rescue. And shouting would only aggravate the situation. When it was over, they dragged her out of the house. The first rays of dawn had already appeared over the forest. They carried her away from the cabin and buried her in the ground. Angela didn't even resist. Why should she live now? She closed her eyes and blacked out. When Angela awoke, it was stuffy and dark, but someone was desperately digging her out, and she realized it must have been the wolves. The bastards had buried her very shallow, and they were too lazy to bother otherwise. And the wolves smelled something alive under the ground and decided to dine. Angela accepted her fate. She didn't want to live any more. But what is it? The wolves began to lick her. They licked the earth off the girl, warmed her cold body, and brought her back to life. You see, once upon a time, she had rescued a little wolf cub in the forest. Maybe it was one of those wolves. Angela decided that this was a sign, and she had to live. The girl returned home to retrieve a rifle from her mother's wardrobe. She looked at the mayhem the scoundrels had left behind. Her home now embodied herself. She was ruined and destroyed. But from that, at the same time, she was full of strength. There was still a tablecloth on the table, the same tablecloth her mother had embroidered. If she could only imagine what they would do to her daughter on that tablecloth. The girl set off for the village. The wolves surprisingly followed her, as if at the moment they were one organism with her, one pack, one creature, wanting only vengeance. People in the village darted away at the sight. The disheveled girl with a rifle in her hands walked through the village surrounded by a pack of wolves. Of course, she was shown where to find Andrew and his friends. The wolves did their job. The girl didn't even have to shoot once. At the sight of her alive, after what they had done, the boys were very frightened. They fell to their knees and started begging her for forgiveness, but she knew no more mercy and gave the command to the wolves. Angela decided never to return to that house again. She took only warm clothes and food. Only then did she notice that the wolves weren't going anywhere. They were following her in a pack, but there was no leader. The girl ran out of the house and saw it on the grass. It was wounded by one of the bastards. It needed immediate help. Looking for iodine, the girl came across her mother's diary. She treated the wound and tore the very same tablecloth her mother had embroidered for bandages. In that diary were all her mother's notes on herbs, various tinctures, and ointments. Now the girl could catch up and become an herbalist just like her mother. Angela decided to go as far into the forest as possible. With the kind of protectors she had, she wasn't afraid of anything. She decided to learn her mother's knowledge, but only to help animals. Angela left and was never seen again. It is said that sometimes at dawn or dusk, one can meet a woman with a small child surrounded by wolves in the remotest corner of our forest. Angela read in her mother's diary that a rather similar story happened to her. Her mother also met a rascal in the woods, but he was alone, and then Angela was born. My friends, thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. All the best to you, and see you next time.